Take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth. Hey!
Spanning the continent to bring you the truth about cannabis and marijuana law reform.
I smoke pot and I like it a lot.
CannabisRadio.com presents The Russ Belville Show, the voice of the marijuana nation.
Hey, this is great, man.
Now, here's your host, Radical Russ Belville.
Good day, tokers and tokettes and non-toking lovers of liberty. It is Thursday, December 29th, 2016, and it's got to be 420 somewhere in the world. Thanks for joining us. We just got 3 days left in this miserable year of 2016 to get through, and we're so glad you could join us here live on CannabisRadio.com. I'm coming to you from Delta 9 Studios in beautiful legal Potland, Oregon, and we've got plenty of 2016 reminiscing for you today. We are going through our archives of some of my travels throughout this very, very busy, tumultuous 2016, and I'm bringing to you my greatest hits, if you will, some of my favorite interviews and recordings from this year of travel. So coming up on the show today, in our Behind the Headlines segment, I'm going to give you a brief clip of the breaking news that I got to deliver. It was cited in the Washington Post, USA Today, LA Times, and many other mainstream publications. I was there in Washington, D.C. when Republican Representative Dana Rohrabacher became the first congressman, the first sitting congressman, to admit his use of medical marijuana. And not just federally illegal medical marijuana, but he doesn't have a state recommendation in California either. So we'll play that for you coming up right after the Cannabis Radio news. Also on the show, we'll have time for some drug war data mining. I was looking over Christopher Ingram's post on the study that claims that Washington teens are smoking more pot because they think it's less harmful, even though Colorado teens aren't. And at the very tail end of the story, he gets some quotes in from Professor Mark Kleiman from Botech Analysis. He was Washington State's pot czar, and he reiterates his belief that we should try to keep marijuana as expensive as possible. And that is his rationale. We need to keep pot really expensive so kids won't use it. We'll take a look at the data and cross-reference the price of weed with the use of weed since legalization. Has expensive weed kept kids from taking it up? Has cheap weed made kids take it up? We'll find out in drug war data mining. Also on the show today, as I mentioned, we're going to be reviewing some of my favorite interviews from 2016 and some of the best speeches and presentations that I've covered. So at 1:30 in our Sinsemilla Science segment, you'll get to hear from the Oregon Marijuana Business Conference 2016 in Eugene, where the esteemed Dr. Carl Hart explained how crack and meth are legal. They just have different names. You'll hear all about that at 1:30. And then at the end of hour one, in the activist agenda, I will bring you my interview with one of the bravest and most charismatic activists anywhere in the United States. She's a 10-year-old girl. Her name is Alexis Bortel, and she's been over 500 days seizure-free thanks to her use of medical marijuana. We got to talk to her in Fort Worth, Texas. Also, coming up in hour two, we're going to bring you more of the highlights from 2016, including another visit to Texas where I got to see a king of Elvi. That's what the collective noun is for Elvises, by the way, a king of Elvi, and spoke with the Afro Redneck. That's an interesting combination. Also, my interview with some activists from Jamaica at the United Nations, and then we'll close out hour two with interviews with 3 different athletes who are promoting the medical use of cannabis. It's all coming up in this Best of 2016 edition of the Russ Belville Show right after the Cannabis Radio News, which is next.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Earn your PhD in THC monetization. with CannabisRadio.com. Don't be late.
Mindful of sustainable practices and limiting their environmental footprint, Sansal Hemp is always grown outdoors, as nature intended. By starting with uniform genetic profiles, Sansal ensures the plant will maintain its optimal performance and yield consistently throughout its life cycle. It is through innovative processes that Sansal is able to achieve pure whole hemp extracts and meet industry requirements and the level of quality desired by many of their customers. Healthy plants, healthy people. SansalCBD.com. Improve your lifestyle naturally.
We love the earth.
I'm Radical Russ Belville, inviting you to join me every weekday on CannabisRadio.com for the Russ Belville Show. It's the NPR of POT. We bring you the latest marijuana headlines, cannabis analysis, drug war data, activist interviews, radical rants, and your live calls. Join me every weekday at 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern, live only on CannabisRadio.com.
You're listening to Radical Russ on the Russ Belville Show.
Hey everybody, it's Radical Russ here from 420 Radio, inviting you to be like me and get your ink done at Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo, Fort Worth's most female-friendly, clean, sterile, awesome tattoo shop. Thomas and his crew are true artists who can design you a custom piece or use a design you bring in. Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo also offers all styles of tattooing as well as piercings and all-around fun. In the DFW area, stop by Lucky Horseshoe Tattoo and tell them Radical Russ sent you. Trust me, it'll feel awesome.
It's time for the Cannabis Radio News, covering the latest headlines in consumer cannabis, medical marijuana, and industrial hemp. Cannabis Radio News is now available exclusively at CannabisRadio.com. Now your marijuana headlines in 4 minutes and 20 seconds. This is Cannabis Radio News.
This is your Cannabis Radio News for Thursday, December 29th, 2016. Officials say they've taken down the Nevada medical marijuana online portal after personal information about marijuana industry workers was exposed. The State Division of Public and Behavioral Health said it learned on Wednesday that information about people who applied for medical marijuana agent cards was publicly available online. That includes social security numbers and dates of birth, KLAS-TV reports. A Dallas man doing a Google search discovered the data and believes nearly 12,000 applications were disclosed in the breach. Officials say private information about medical marijuana patients appears to still be secure. Division Chief Cody Finney says state information technology employees are working to prevent future breaches, and the incident has been referred to law enforcement. The division is contacting the people affected and 3 major credit reporting agencies. A state commission said residents hoping to grow Arkansas medical marijuana must pay a $15,000 application fee in addition to a licensing fee. The Arkansas Medical Marijuana Commission approved the plan on Tuesday. The licensing fee has yet to be determined, the Arkansas Democrat Gazette reported. The $15,000 fee is the maximum allowed under the medical marijuana amendment that voters approved last month. Unsuccessful applicants will get back half of the application fee. A judge won't dismiss charges against a man accused of driving under the influence of marijuana and causing a crash on the Massachusetts Turnpike that killed a state trooper. In a ruling issued Wednesday, a Worcester judge denied a motion to dismiss several of the charges against 30-year-old David Jagunya of Webster. Jagunya has pleaded not guilty to manslaughter and related offenses in the March 16th death of 44-year-old trooper Thomas Clardy. Authorities say Clardy had stopped a car for a traffic violation when his cruiser was hit by Jagunya's vehicle in Charlton. Witnesses say Jagunya had swerved across all 3 travel lanes without slowing. Jagunya's lawyer had argued that several charges are duplicative and there was insufficient evidence to support the charge alleging Jagunya had used marijuana. Clardy's death featured prominently in the 2016 campaign to legalize marijuana, with opponents running ads featuring Clardy's widow. A North Texas police officer recently gave a teenager the option of being cited for marijuana possession or doing 200 push-ups after the boy was caught smoking pot outside a movie theater. The teen opted for the push-ups after Arlington officer Eric Ball smelled the odor of marijuana. Police Lieutenant Christopher Cook says Ball was working an off-duty detail at the theater when he came across the teen. He found the boy's mother inside the theater, and the woman hugged and thanked the officer. Cook says the boy was respectful and realized he'd made a mistake. He says Ball played football under coaches who used push-ups to ensure discipline. It wasn't clear when it occurred, but a video of the teen struggling with the push-ups was posted Monday to Facebook. A new study published in the Pharmacological Research Journal is lending further credence to the long-held theory that cannabis could be your best friend in the bedroom. In the study, researchers from the University of Catania in Italy and Charles University and Masaryk University in the Czech Republic reviewed a number of investigations conducted in the 1970s and 80s on the effects of cannabis on sexual desire and satisfaction. What they discovered was that people who consumed cannabis before sex experienced aphrodisiac effects in roughly half of the reported cases, while 70% claimed that pre-coitus consumption led to enhancement in pleasure and satisfaction. Recreational marijuana legalization had no impact on how many Colorado teens use pot or on whether they think it is dangerous, but that could be because years of medical marijuana sales already had brought about changes in those measures, according to a new study. The study, posted on the website of the journal JAMA Pediatrics on Tuesday, looked at national survey data and concluded that the percent of teens from Colorado who said they had used marijuana in the past month was statistically unchanged between the pre-legalization years of 2010 to 2012 and the post-legalization years of 2013 to 2015. Similarly, the study found that a shift in Colorado teens' attitudes toward marijuana's risks was not statistically different from the national trend. This has been your Cannabis Radio News for Thursday, December 29th, 2016. I'm Russ Belville.
Forwarding the cause of legalization and research of the growing cannabis industry, one podcast at a time. The Cannabis Radio Network.
Great websites today need expert web design and development and need to be e-commerce ready and mobile friendly. But building a marketable and profitable website can be an uphill climb. Ready to make your new website or replace your existing website? Think Orange as the new way to get in the black. Orange Hill Development works with Fortune 500 companies and offer the same top quality development service at a fraction of what other providers charge. Brands like Absolute, Carlsberg, and Nestea trust Orange Hill Development. Find out why you should trust your website with Orange Hill. Contact Orange Hill for a consultation today at orangehilldevelopment.com.
Midnight, July 1st, 2015, adult marijuana prohibition came to an end in Oregon. Immediately, over 400,000 adults who consume cannabis responsibly were no longer criminals. This is what freedom sounds like. Brought to you by Portland Normal.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people.
Okay. Maybe you're high, too.
At Herbie's Cannabis Seeds, we pride ourselves on bringing you the best quality seeds from the world's most respected cannabis seed producers, all at the lowest online prices. You can find Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. All cannabis seeds are sold as souvenirs and as a means of preserving cannabis genetics. Herbie's Seeds in no way intends to condone, promote, or incite the use of illegal or controlled substances. We strongly urge all prospective customers to check their national laws prior to placing an order. Herbie's Seeds at herbiesheadshop.com. Proud sponsors of the Russ Belville Show and 420 Radio.
The world of cannabis is evolving at a frenetic pace. The Russ Belville Show gets behind the headlines to take a deeper look at breaking news in our Cannabis Focus.
Today in the Cannabis Focus, we want to take a look at our Congress as we move forward into the new administration. The House and the Senate will be under the control of the Republican Party, as well as the presidency and the Supreme Court. And as we move forward, there's a lot of question as to the safety, the the continuing evolution, if you will, of the legal marijuana movement. There's people on both sides, some that think that a Trump administration will be beneficial, others who think that it could be detrimental. I line up in that latter camp. But as we move forward, it's important to note that we are gaining more and more support in the Congress, even from among Republicans, when it comes to some marijuana reforms. We've had the farm bill that has passed that has legalized industrial hemp production in the states that have laws allowing it. We've got the Rohrabacher Amendment that protects the current medical marijuana states from any federal intrusion from the DOJ spending any money to raid them or prosecute them. It's important to note also that provision ends in April and will have to be renewed if it's to continue. We don't know if that will happen, but pushing for that to happen will be the newly formed Congressional Cannabis Caucus. This has been formed on a bipartisan basis with my representative, Earl Blumenauer, and the aforementioned Dana Rohrabacher, the conservative from Orange County, and includes many other congresspeople who are friendly to the marijuana issue. Jared Polis from Colorado, Steve Cohen from Tennessee, Maria Del Bene from Washington State, and others. More Democrats than Republicans in this caucus, but it's a start, and it's good news for those of us that are wanting to keep the marijuana issue moving forward in our Congress. And this last May, there was an event that took place, the normal D.C. Lobby Day, where the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws invited activists to fly into Washington, D.C. and join them for a day of lobbying our federal lawmakers. And speaking to us at that event were 5 members of this cannabis caucus, the ones I mentioned, including Representative Dana Rohrabacher, the congressman from Orange County, who made a startling revelation that shocked his advisors and allowed me to report on a breaking news story that made the Washington Post and other national news. Rohrabacher admitting to medical marijuana use.
A lot of people know that I spent most of my life as a surfer, all right? Hey, dude, surf's up, let's go, you know? And anyway, and quite frankly, I never took off my puka shells, right? There they are. Okay, well, anyway. And I didn't forget the guys down at the beach either, so that's what some of this is all about. However, let me give you this dirty little secret about surfers. We wear out our shoulders. I haven't been able to go surfing for a year and a half, and I've been in severe pain because I spent all this time doing that, which I can barely do now, and it wore all the cartilage out here, you know? So let's say about 30 years of really good surfing, and now I'm in pain because I've got arthritis. Yeah, it was worth it. I'll tell you, I'd do it again, okay? Especially if there's something we can do about it. And I went to one of these hemp fests or something like that. They had San Bernardino, or anybody go to that. And so this guy is showing me the medical things and all that, and he says, and you should try this. And it's a candle, and you light the candle, and it waxes in there, it melts down, then you rub it on you, whatever you got problems with. And you know what? I tried it about 2 weeks ago, and it's the first time in 2 years, or not, first time in a year and a half, that I had a decent night's sleep because the arthritis pain was gone. And now don't tell anybody I broke the law. Actually, you know, they'll bust down my door, and you know, and take whatever's inside and use it for evidence against me, whatever it is. The bottom line is that I don't know. There's definitely cannabis in there, and it makes sure that I can sleep now. The crime here is that we are using law enforcement dollars to prevent people from getting to that remote.
Oh, gnarly!
I didn't pick that one, folks. That one was random. But it was absolutely perfect to have Jeff Spicoli following up Representative Rohrabacher, admitting to his medical cannabis use. I literally ran out of the place with my recorder to the hotel room to get this posted. We got more of the best of 2016 coming up, but first, some drug war data mining when we return.
Next to THC and CBD, you can now add CBR to your cannabis vernacular. CBR as in CannabisRadio.com.
Cannabis legalization efforts are increasing competition for businesses wanting to make it big. In this complex and fast-changing environment, only the savviest will survive. What are you going to do to stay ahead of the game? Enter New Frontier's free platform, Equio, the premier business intelligence, visualization, and marketing platform for the cannabis industry. With Equio, you can stay on top of your store's sales, trends, and competition, better understand your seasonality and broader sales trends, identify and compare your top products and categories, and cross-buying opportunities. Go to www.equio.io to sign up for your free membership today. That's EQUIO.io to sign up now. The power of real-time big data is now in your hands. Run with New Frontier and let us help you conquer the wild.
Previously on the Stoner Jesus Show.
St. Peter auditioning to be the Microsoft weed software spokesman.
Hey, this is St. Peter for Microsoft. They track weed. Does that mean they're going to track the weed? Is that what this is about, Jesus? I'm not going to be tracked, Jesus. I'm not going to have my fucking weed tracked, and I'm not going to have fucking Microsoft track me back to my fucking house through my weed to where they fucking spied on people with that goddamn Xbox camera. Fuck this. Fuck Microsoft. Fuck this bullshit.
The Stoner Jesus Show, live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Or find the Stoner Jesus Show podcast on demand at CannabisRadio.com and StonerJesus.net.
Peace, bitches.
You're not high. You're listening to the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
The Supreme Court is wrong on the Second Amendment.
Okay, maybe you're high, too.
When you are starting up a medical cannabis business, you want a fired-up lawyer who understands the needs of cannabis consumers. The law office of Lauren Vasquez is your fired-up lawyer for the cannabis industry. Visit her website, fireduplawyer.com, or call 1-855-MMJ-LAWS for more information. That's 855-665-5297 for Lauren Vasquez, your fired-up lawyer, or email fireduplawyer@gmail.com.
Promoting the end of adult cannabis prohibition is easy because we have facts, science, reason, compassion, evidence, truth, and logic on our side. It's even easier when researchers catalog it all for us. Learn how to gather the facts on marijuana use, arrests, seizures, rehabs, drug tests, and more on this edition of Drug War Data Mining.
Today in the Drug War Data Mines, we're referring back to that study that we talked about earlier this week on the effect of marijuana legalization on teen perceptions of marijuana's harm and teen use of marijuana. The big headline coming out of this one is the researchers claiming that legalization in Washington state caused kids to fear marijuana less and use marijuana more. Yet the legalization in Colorado did not have that sort of effect. The teen perceptions and use remained relatively stable. Of course, they tried to explain this away. They tried to explain it away as saying Colorado already had a vibrant medical marijuana market, and so kids' attitudes had already changed, which of course ignores the fact that Washington state also had a vibrant medical marijuana market. And as we talked about on yesterday's show regarding this study, the other states don't seem to back up these trends in any way whatsoever, taking a look at places like California and Oregon and so forth. Well, Christopher Ingraham at the Washington Post Wonk blog has written about this, and he frames it perfectly by explaining how study after study at the national and state level has shown that the legalization of marijuana hasn't had much effect on kids. Before he delves into this finding, even bringing up the quote, and this will go down in history as one of my favorite quotes from the National Institutes of Drug Abuse, quote, "We had predicted based on the changes in legalization culture in the U.S., as well as decreasing perceptions among teenagers that marijuana was harmful, that accessibility and use would go up, but it hasn't gone up." End quote. Love that quote. And the story brings up some of the data, shows us a couple nice graphs, so it's worth looking at if you want to get out to the Washington Post website. But in the study, Ingraham cites Mark Kleiman from New York University, used to be the UCLA public policy prof and formerly Washington State's pot czar. So they got a quote or two from Mark on this. And Mark brings up something that he refers to often and was a major highlight of the BOTEC policy summit that they had last April. And that is, he says, quote, "The effect of the legalization initiatives themselves on price and availability of cannabis really wasn't felt until after the study's surveys were done." And goes on to say that the way to make sure that teenagers don't take up marijuana use is to make sure that marijuana doesn't become too cheap. He says, quote, "There's reason to think that adolescents are more price sensitive than adults with respect to cannabis use. So I'd advise states that legalize to do what they can to keep prices from falling." End quote. And I just want to take a moment here to debunk that thought, this hypothesis that keeping marijuana expensive for adults, artificially expensive for adults, is going to make kids use it less. First of all, it's bad for the adults because we keep the marijuana prices high, and all that does is maintain the incentive for unregulated market and illegal sales of products that aren't tested or inspected or labeled. So it's already bad from that perspective, keeping the price artificially high. But it's also bad from the perspective that it doesn't seem to work. Today, I took a look at the website priceofweed.com, and I entered for all 50 states in D.C. the average price of a high-quality ounce of marijuana. And this is submitted from tens of thousands of marijuana smokers all across the country who turn in their price reports. I then cross-referenced that with the increase or decrease in monthly marijuana smoking from 2009 to 2015, because this study was from that period, right? Saying that before 2012, there was X, and then after 2012, there was Y. So we're going to include the same data range. And I found no correlation whatsoever. We take a look at the state, North Dakota, that had the greatest rise in teen marijuana use, went up 41% over that span from 2009 to 2015. Their price of marijuana per ounce is $388.84, one of the top 10 highest prices in the nation. Meanwhile, we've got the state of state of Idaho. Idaho's marijuana use among teenagers went down 14.5%. And yet their price of marijuana is one of the top 10 lowest prices of marijuana in the nation, $275 per ounce. As we look through some of the rest of them, you find similar results, where in Maryland, pot use among teenagers went up 30%, yet the price of their weed is $364 an ounce. The average for the United States, by the way, is $320. So they're above average, and yet their use went up 30%. We have a 21% rise in the state of Indiana. Price of their weed, $333. 17% rise in Kentucky. Price of their weed, $343. South Dakota, 16% increase, $357 an ounce. We find places where the youth use went down. Oklahoma, it went down the most, went down 24%, and yet the price of their weed is $350 per ounce. That would seem to corroborate the idea that the high price makes the weed use go down. But then we see another state with $350 an ounce prices, like a Wisconsin, and their weed use went up almost 11%. Went up almost 11% in Tennessee with the same $350 ounce. So it does not seem to me that the price of weed has much correlation whatsoever to whether or not kids are using it. I'll get this data published a little later today on weednews.co. Check it out when we come back. Dr. Carl Hart.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
Keep your cannabis cravings under control. Feed your mind with CannabisRadio.com.
Equio, New Frontier's cutting-edge big data platform, puts the information and answers you need right at your fingertips in real time to help you more effectively run your cannabis business. Go to www.equio.io to sign up for your free membership today. Again, that's www.equio.io. Run with New Frontier and let us help you conquer the wild.
Georgia. Hi, this is Willie Nelson. Alcohol prohibition didn't work in the 1920s, and marijuana prohibition isn't working today. It's time we stopped arresting responsible marijuana smokers. It's the fair thing to do.
For more information, contact NORML, the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws. Call toll-free 888-67-NORML or visit their website at norml.org.
The Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com, the National Wildlife Refuge for Marijuana Unicorns.
The Russ Belville Show is proudly sponsored by the Marijuana Business Association. The MJBA, called by NBC News the Cannabis Chamber of Commerce, is the fastest growing business association in the fastest growing industry in America. I've been working with the MJBA for years, and I personally invite you to join the MJBA. MJBA also publishes the popular MJ Headline News on Facebook and the MJNewsNetwork.com and Marijuana Channel 1 on YouTube. Visit mjba.net for more details. Despite marijuana's federal Schedule I status, academics continue to discover the truth, counter the propaganda, and unlock more benefits within humanity's most beneficial plant. Join us now as we speak with the pioneering researchers in cannabis in this edition of Sinsemilla Science. We go back to the Oregon Marijuana Business Conference this year in Eugene, Oregon, where the esteemed Dr. Carl Hart was speaking to the crowd on pharmacology.
What I'd like to do is to go through a few drugs and show you how we have exaggerated the harmful effects. And I'm going to start with crack cocaine. Now, crack, if you focus your attention on the left side of the graph, that's powder cocaine. Go back to the right side of the graph, that's crack cocaine. Go back to the right and focus on the red circle. The red circle is a hydrochloride group. It's a salt, basically. It's the only difference between crack and powder cocaine. That hydrochloride group prevents the cocaine from being smoked. If you want to smoke cocaine, you have to remove that hydrochloride group. And that's what you do with crack. Now, otherwise, the drugs are the same. Now, that hydrochloride group does not produce any pharmacological effect. It doesn't have any biological effect. So the effects of these two drugs are identical. Now, this is what we have discovered from doing studies with these drugs in the lab with people, and we've done a number of studies. Now, it is true, when you smoke crack cocaine, the effects are produced more rapidly and they are more intense than snorting powder cocaine. But when you dissolve powder cocaine in water and you shoot it intravenously, the intensity of the effect and the onset of the effects are identical to smoking crack cocaine. The bottom line, they are the same drug. But the public has been misled to believe that crack is more dangerous. And this has led to legislation that punishes crack cocaine more harshly than powder cocaine. And we'll come back to that. But I want to go to another drug that you all are familiar with here in the West, methamphetamine. Again, focus your attention on the left. That's amphetamine or D-amphetamine. That's the compound that is in Adderall. Some of you all might know Adderall. Focus your attention back to the right. That's methamphetamine. The only difference between these two drugs is that circle. That circle is a methyl group. That additional methyl group makes it methamphetamine. People have suggested, including scientists, they have suggested that the addition of these methyl groups makes methamphetamine more lipid soluble. That is, it gets into the brain more rapidly, it produces a more intense effect, it's more addictive, it's more dangerous, and so forth. So, we did a study, along with a number of other people now. We did a study in which we compared the drugs in the same people under double-blind condition, because I didn't see any evidence that suggested that methamphetamine was more dangerous, more addictive, and so forth than amphetamine. So we did a study, brought people into the lab under double-blind conditions, and we gave them these drugs on different days. What we found is that the drugs produced identical effects on behavior, on physiology, on cognitive function. They are the same drug. So when we think about Adderall and we think about methamphetamine, they are the same drug. In fact, both drugs are approved by the FDA to treat attention deficit disorder. Some of you all may have known that. And some of you all may know that our military uses amphetamine for soldiers to keep them awake so they can fight better and drop bombs longer, right? Some of you all know this? You all with me? All right, okay. But still, we still have this belief about methamphetamine. For example, people who abuse methamphetamine, they don't have a prescription from their physician. They're not being taken care of by a physician. And methamphetamine may be causing some damage to their brains. That's what we've been told. And on the slide, I have a picture of brain imaging. On the left, that's a picture of someone who has not used methamphetamine. On the right, that's a picture of someone who has used methamphetamine. And typically, if you're in a scientific talk about this, the speaker would say, you can see the difference between these two brain images. You see on the left, the image is brighter. And that, to you, they would say, indicates that the folks who are using methamphetamine have some sort of brain damage. There is some evidence that when you give methamphetamine or amphetamine, any amphetamine at large doses to naive animals, you can destroy brain cells. Just like you can destroy brain cells and even the animal if you give nicotine at large doses. But nonetheless, the idea is that these images tell you something about people's function. They don't. And this is not data, because I can image people on this side of the room and can compare them with folks on this side of the room and find some differences. But when I see those differences, I won't say that the people on this side of the room is cognitively impaired or has brain damage. That would be inappropriate without actually testing them for cognitive function and so forth. Because with humans, there's a wide variation of what our brains look like. This wide variation sometimes is not taken into account when we have these kind of findings with drug users. Now, this concern that I have about methamphetamine, particularly with brain imaging and cognitive function, led me to review that entire literature. I published a paper a few years ago about that review, and what I concluded was this, is that methamphetamine users, illicit methamphetamine users, when it comes to their cognitive functioning, they are normal. Their cognitive functioning is normal. And when it comes to their brain, in terms of brain damage and how their brains compare with folks who haven't used methamphetamine, again, they are within the normal range. Despite the fact that researchers have had this propensity to interpret any difference as some clinically significant abnormality, that's inappropriate. Now we are doing a similar sort of thing with heroin in the country. The country at the moment is losing its mind about heroin, particularly when it comes to heroin overdoses. What you all should know is that people rarely die from a heroin only overdose. 75% of the people who die from a heroin or any opioid-related death do so because they combine it with another sedative, like alcohol, like a benzodiazepine. 75% or so. Now, what does that tell us? It tells us that our public health message is kind of simple. It's not the opiate. That's a difficult thing to do. I mean, it's possible, but our public health message is simple. If you're going to use an opiate, don't combine it with another sedative. But that's not what we do in our country. We are not providing sound public health information or rational public health information. Another sort of thing that we can simply do when it comes to these opioids, we can simply make sure that we have the availability of the opioid antagonist, naloxone, so we can just simply reverse the effects of overdose. This is quite simple. Now, when it comes to cannabis, you all are familiar with many of the exaggerations as it relates to cannabis. There is a journal called The Lancet. The Lancet is a really good journal, medical journal. It seems like every edition there is a paper, a study showing that cannabis causes psychosis. You all familiar with this? It seems like every issue this belief is perpetuated in that journal. So this concerned us, my colleague Charlie Consider and I. So we reviewed the literature on cannabis and psychosis, and we recently published a paper. What we concluded that the correlation between cannabis use and psychosis is not specific, either with regard to the chemicals found in cannabis or with regard to psychosis as opposed to other psychiatric disorders. What does that mean? That means, in terms of the chemicals, when you look at amphetamine, when you look at tobacco, the relationship between amphetamine and tobacco and psychosis is stronger than the relationship with cannabis and psychosis. Now, these are just correlations, but that's a fact. And then also, when you look at other psychiatric disorders, the relationship between these drugs and depression, anxiety, are stronger than that relationship with psychosis. So what that tells you is that when people are talking about the relationship between cannabis and psychosis, and they don't mention tobacco, amphetamines, they don't mention those other psychiatric disorders, it's a license for you to stop listening, because they think that you're an idiot or they are an idiot. So you don't need to listen any further. So another sort of thing that I've learned along my journey is that we have used the enforcement of our drug policy as racial discrimination policy. It's a way to racially discriminate. Now, I want to come back to crack cocaine. As I pointed out, that they're crack and powder, they're the same drug. But in 1986 and extended in 1988, we passed some of the harshest drug laws in the country, where we punish crack cocaine violations 100 times more harshly than powder cocaine violations. That is, people caught with small amounts of crack cocaine were required to go to jail for a mandatory minimum sentence of 5 years for having small amounts of crack cocaine. This led to this horrible statistic. More than 80% of the people convicted under these laws were black, even though black people were not the majority of the crack users. That's one thing. This came to light in 1994 when the U.S. Sentencing Commission did this comprehensive study. And when they did the study, they said, oh, wow, this is going on. We need to change the law. The U.S. Sentencing Commission, they decide what the punishment for violations will be in the country. And when they make a recommendation, it becomes law, except in this case. In this case, Congress and President Bill Clinton, rejected that recommendation. First time the U.S. Sentencing Commission's recommendation were rejected. Bill Clinton said in response why he decided to reject that recommendation. He said we have to send a constant message to our children that drugs are illegal, drugs are dangerous, drugs may cost you your life, and the penalty for dealing drugs are severe. But we weren't only talking about drug dealing in this case, we're talking about people caught with simple possession as well. But that's what Bill Clinton said. Fast forward 12 years to 2007, when presidential candidate Barack Obama was running for the White House, speaking before Howard University, that's a black university, he said about this differential treatment, he said, judges think that's wrong, Republicans think that's wrong, Democrats think that's wrong, and yet it's been approved by Republican and Democratic presidents because no one has been willing to brave the politics and make it right. That will change when I'm president. Did it change? Well, in the Obama way, kind of, right? In 2010, President Obama signed into law the Fair Sentencing Act that decreased the disparity from 100 to 1 to 18 to 1. So now, today, crack cocaine is punished 18 times more harshly than powder cocaine. Recall that I said they are the same drug. It would be like punishing people who smoke cannabis 100 times more harshly than those who use it, who take it in their brownies. That's what it would be like. Now, on this sort of change, I think Brother Malcolm X spoke posthumously to this issue when he said, if you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6 inches, there is no progress. And then when you consider that today, 2016, the numbers, when we look at the people who are being arrested for this same law, to even today, more than 80% of the people being arrested under this law are black.
That's Dr. Carl Hart speaking to the pharmacological similarity of crack cocaine and methamphetamine to powder cocaine and Adderall. Always illuminating to hear Dr. Carl Hart speak. If you get a chance to find him on YouTube or read any of his books, you really ought to do it. Learn a lot from this man. All right, stay tuned. When we come back, we'll have more of the best of my 2016 interviews and events with probably my favorite activist of 2016, 10-year-old Alexis Bortel. She was actually 9 when we did this interview. Coming up next in the Activist Agenda.
This is the Russ Belville Show on CannabisRadio.com.
From dabs to chivas, sativas to indicas, we roll out a whole concentrate of fresh new content every week. It's like going from the greenhouse to the dispensary. CannabisRadio.com.
Seeking a career in cannabis? Ready to become the next great bud tender? Increase your knowledge, skills, and hireability with a Trichome certification today. Trichome Institute is the only cannabis education company in the world with courses that include textbooks, workbooks, an expert-approved and government-certified curriculum. Trichome now offers these courses online. Take the courses at your own pace with 24/7 live human support from anywhere in the world. These courses are perfect for physicians, pharmacists, MMJ parents or patients, adult use customers, and most of all, aspiring bud tenders. The course includes full access to the cannabis industry's largest job board and even includes resume building help. Register for online courses with the cannabis industry's educational leader in science, education, and training. Visit TrichomeInstitute.com today.
Previously on the Stoner Jesus Show.
We do have John McAfee. He's running for the Libertarian Party nomination for president. What makes someone like you want to take the reins of this?
We're so far behind, it's frightening. And in a cyber war, we can't hack into the Chinese. back in 1979, they started building cyber defense systems. We didn't even think about it until 20 years ago. I see no candidates and certainly no one within government capable of dealing with this issue.
The Stoner Jesus Show, live Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Or find the Stoner Jesus Show podcast on demand at CannabisRadio.com and StonerJesus.net.
Peace, bitches.
You can find Radical Russ online everywhere. Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, SoundCloud, Snapchat, LinkedIn, and Boise State University's 2400 baud modem bulletin board system from 1985.
The International Cannabis Business Conference comes to San Francisco, California on February 16th and 17th, 2017. The ICBC San Francisco, Northern California's first business-to-business event since the recent historic election, will bring together top state regulators and industry leaders to discuss permits, business models, and opportunities within the newly enacted laws and landscape. Of course, the ICBC also famously offers some of the best cannabis industry networking, leveraging our worldwide following to connect wholesalers, brands, distributors, investors, and strategic partners. And don't forget to come early for our VIP reception and stay late for our legendary after party. Join us for the longest continuously running cannabis business conference in California at the Hilton San Francisco Union Square, the one and only International Cannabis Business Conference. Visit internationalcbc.com for tickets today.
Activism begins with ACT. The Russ Belville Show features the stories of hardworking grassroots activists working for an end to prohibition in today's activist agenda.
Well, this year I got to meet a fantastic activist in Texas. Her name's Alexis Bortel. She's 9 years old and she's battling seizures with cannabis. Radical Russ here at the Southwest Cannabis Conference and Expo, where I am so pleased to be sitting down with the rock star of the show so far, Alexis Bortel. Hi, Alexis. Hi. You just delivered probably the most bombshell speech I've heard, and I do these events a lot. You had numerous standing ovations. There had to be a couple of thousand people listening to you. How'd that make you feel? Were you nervous?
I was nervous at first. It was a lot of work just studying the speech itself.
Yeah.
But it was actually really fun.
Was this your first time doing a big speech like this?
I had one other speech like this. It was in DFW. It was just, except it was outdoors.
Okay. And has anyone ever told you that you're really good at this? Like, I speak for a living, and I have no advice for you. You did such a great job. Is this something you want to keep doing?
Yes, I want to keep doing this because that's my talent. Like, I can speak in front of many and just go blank.
You do have a great talent for that. In fact, you even mentioned that you weren't going to stop your mission, even if you had to become governor someday. Do you think you might go into politics? You might. That would be something interesting, I think. You also gave a mention to a friend of yours who's a friend of mine as well, Vincent Lopez, who left us last year. Do you think Vincent was watching? You think he's proud of what you've been doing? Yeah. Can you talk about some of the other kids that you're trying to help out with Team Alexis? You mentioned a couple up there on your speech. Now, your use of medical cannabis, you mentioned how, Texas has this law that has low THC and high CBD. That didn't work for you, did it? Mm-hmm. That's right. And so you moved out to Colorado where you can get, whatever levels that you need. And you mentioned how many days you've been seizure-free now? You are, 20 days away from a full year or something like that?
Around that, yeah.
19, something like that?
Pretty much a miracle.
That is a miracle. It's amazing. And what was it like for you trying to go to school when you had to worry about seizures all the time?
I had a lot of tardies. I had to go to the nurse's office practically every day.
Did it hurt your grades any?
Yes, it hurt my grades because sometimes I would miss tests.
Yeah. And now you've been almost a year seizure-free. How's school going now?
School now, it's way better because I have way less tardies. I hardly go to the nurse, basically.
That's great to hear. So obviously you want to come back home to Texas, right?
Yes.
And you miss a lot of friends and family here?
Yep.
Yeah, that's got to be tough. So the only way you get to come back is if these legislators fix this law. So what do you tell them? How do you convince some of these people that are scared of it that they need to change the law?
I convinced them by just saying my story, just saying like how it helps many people and it's illegal in most places and we need to fix that.
You know, a lot of these legislators and some people are just afraid when they hear the letters THC. They think of the people who smoke joints and get high. It's nothing like that for your treatment, is it? You don't get any sort of weird feelings from it, do you?
No, it's medical. As far as I know, medical, just the THC part of it, it's basically what helps most people.
And it's in an oil form, right, that you're taking this?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, excellent. So you continue to fight with Team Alexis. We've got to get these legislators to change their mind. I heard your plans coming up now are going to be coming to the legislature quite often, right?
Yep.
Tell folks about what you're going to be doing here.
So I'll go every once in a while. I'll come back and forth from Colorado to here to talk to legislators about how this amount of THC won't help. We need a higher amount of THC. Legal.
And is it not just for kids that have seizure disorders, like other disorders as well?
Yes, like cancer and many others.
Yeah, Crohn's disease. There's all sorts of things that it could help. When you talk to other little kids, other kids your age in school, I mean, do you talk to them? Do they know anything about this? Is this weird to them?
Here in Colorado, I haven't told too many people.
Yeah.
But in Texas, pretty much the class knew. And I think it was kind of weird for them, just...
Yeah, to trying to figure out, you know, you're having this disability, you're having these seizures, and wow, here's something that helps. It's got to be frustrating to think that, like you said in your speech, you're 10 years old, you figured this out. How come the adults can't figure it out?
They just need to research. That's all. That's all it comes to.
Does it feel strange to get so much attention, to have so many people, like after the speech, everybody wants to take their selfie, take their picture with
Yep.
you? Do you feel like a celebrity, like a rock star a little?
Yeah.
Yeah? You get the special back room, the green room with the chips and the sodas and all these cameras pointing at you? Kind of fun, huh?
Yes.
All right. Well, I think you are doing great work and so much good that you're bringing to this, because I think a lot of adults, when they hear it from adults like me, they may think I have some sort of trick up my sleeve.
Yep.
I'm trying to trick them. Obviously, you're not trying to trick anybody.
No.
Thank you so much for what you're doing. And do you have any emails or websites or anything like that to tell people about to help you out?
Yes, teamalexis.org. It's basically a Facebook site. It's just about how it's been going and how medical cannabis can help others.
That's amazing. Alexis, I know you are going to get this law changed in Texas, and a lot of people will have a lot of gratitude for you for helping them out, because like you said, you have this talent to speak for people, and a lot of people don't. A lot of people are afraid to speak out. So congratulations and great work with everything you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks for talking to us. I'm really honored. I appreciate it. Have a great show.
Thank you.
All right, folks, we'll be back with more from the Southwest Cannabis Conference and Expo. It's always amazing when you get to meet someone so young who's got so much talent and charisma. And if you could have seen her delivering that speech, standing up on a booster to get up to the podium in front of 2,000 or 3,000 people there at the expo, and didn't shake, didn't stammer, delivered a speech better than 90% of the adults that I've seen deliver speeches. It was just phenomenal. And keep your eyes on this girl. The next 10, 20 years, I would not be surprised if she did become the governor of Texas. That's all the time I got for Hour 1. Thanks for joining us for this Best of 2016 retrospective. We'll have more Best of 2016 coming up in the next hour. For everyone here at Delta 9 Studios in beautiful legal Portland, Oregon, and CannabisRadio.com, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us. And until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes down smooth.